Here's another interesting story we think you should know about on the global stage. The people of Ecuador are so angry about a deal cut between the IMF and their government that they've taken to the streets en masse. In fact, the protests got so heated, the president has moved his government out of the capital to the coastal city of Guayaquil. Now, remember that throughout Latin America, the IMF has an insidious reputation for cutting deals that end up destroying economies and keeping entire governments in perpetual debt. RT correspondent Nick Sanchez O'Donovan is in this melee reporting for us tonight.
Hello from the streets of Quito that right now are in an absolute chaos. There's thousands and thousands of protesters. Let's try and get closer to the front line. Just a few feet away, it's the presidential palace. It's heavily armed, guarded by military and police forces. These protesters trying to get there. Just 2 minutes ago, while I was doing the live shot with our Spanish version, we got hit by tear gas, and that's what we've been seeing all day. The protesters are using Molotov cocktails, stones, bricks, just like these, look, just like these, and police are firing back with tear gas, with sound bombs. It's a situation of extreme tension here in the streets of Quito. Just to give you an idea, Ecuador's Red Cross has suspended any activity in the city centre. They say it's not safe for doctors and for ambulances. Instead, we've got crews of volunteers that are just taking the dozens and dozens of wounded people to bus stops and treating them there. It's actually pretty shocking. As you mentioned, these protests are anti-austerity measures that were implemented by the government, included scrapping the subsidies for diesel, for gasoline, and that has triggered these protests. On Monday, we had the students. Then on Tuesday, we had the indigenous communities. Today, they're all moved together. They've joined together in this massive force, tens of thousands of people that are taking over the streets of Quito. Till a couple of minutes ago, we all thought that President Lenin Moreno was actually in Guayaquil, but he just landed here, apparently, because he wanted to monitor the situation on the ground. But what he's going to see and what he's going to hear is a message of absolute repulse to his government, to his ministers, and to his measures that, as you mentioned, came after a deal with the IMF, $4.2 billion for Ecuador, struggling with debt. But the people here say that the government is going to favor banks and big business instead of the people. And that's why all of these people are here protesting. 3 days this week of massive protests. This is a national strike. And what we've seen here on the front line is absolute chaos and clashes between the protesters and the police forces. The air is heavy with tear gas, with smoke. It's practically unbearable to report, to talk. And this is definitely not the end. It's only 2:30 local time, and they've promised to stay here till dusk, and maybe even tomorrow. So this is just the beginning of what is promising to be a tragic day in Ecuador's history.
Nick O'Donovan following that story for us there. Joining us now from Mexico City is Andres Arauz. We take you to Mexico because he's an economist and a former Ecuadorean Central Bank official who's good enough to share his insight on this, and it is aplenty. Let's start talking about the IMF, if we could. They offer cheap loans, as we know, and then they have a tendency to bribe government officials, they're historic for this, into almost suicidal economic policies that oftentimes countries can't get out of. Are these people who are protesting right to be weary about this deal that their president has cut with the IMF?
Well, hi, it's good to be here. Yeah, definitely the people are right. It's totally unreasonable for the IMF to demand what 6 points of GDP austerity package that implies prices price hikes in the prices of oil, of gas, of diesel. All the prices are expected to go up in the next few weeks. So the people are right to protest. The dimension of the package that the IMF demands is so unreasonable that some people have also called it economic malpractice, in the sense that they knew that this was going to cause such a huge pain in the population, but they still went for it.
So what's going on? Why did they do this? The accusation that we hear is that somehow Lenin Moreno has sold out. Do you think that he's chosen big money over the social justice that he originally promised?
Well, yeah, definitely. It's very unfortunate for the Ecuadorian population, myself included, but when Lenin Moreno ran on a progressive platform in 2017, people voted for him because he wanted social justice. He wanted a continuation of the progressive policies that Rafael Correa had been leading in Ecuador. But once he came into power, he flip-flopped completely and started adopting the platform of the economic right. And not only the nationalist right that sometimes certain governments promote, but the neoliberal right, completely articulating himself to the interests of the U.S., not only in economic terms, but also in geopolitical terms, as is widely known. This means, in effect, that he has started to serve the interests of Western creditors. He has gone to the capital markets and basically issued over $10 billion worth of foreign debt, almost replicating the pattern that Macri followed in Argentina. So we see here something, a pattern that the IMF is inducing and replicating in the entire region. Here in this case, he has sold out completely to the interests of foreign capital.
But how does that...
And here, for example, just last week in the UN meetings, he received the gold medal from a lobby group headed by Chevron.
But has he gotten more? We're down to about 30 seconds, but has he gotten more than just a gold medal? How does something like this happen? I mean, would you go as far as saying that maybe he's done some kind of deal to enrich himself?
Well, yeah, there are definitely suspicions of he has an offshore company in Panama and Belize. There are accounts that have been revealed. So it's probable that he's just being hijacked also by those interests to make these decisions.
That's a fascinating conversation. Andres Arauz, we thank you for your insight, and obviously we give the other side, the government of Lenin Moreno, an opportunity to present their perspective on this if they wish to come forward. Thank you again. Well, so you haven't heard that we're the ones covering the stories that you won't see covered anywhere else? In Venezuela, Kazakhstan, let's go to Hong Kong. And the media reaction to that has been crickets. How about the way we cover those stories? What the hell does that mean? Wally, Wally, Wally. That's the key word in this case, uprising. Keep? Can you believe that? Watching. This is the right thing for members of the media to do, to actually pick sides. Look, if you like what you see, subscribe.